Hello, my name is William, and welcome to Dragon X Dominion, a realm where dragon legends are forged in fire, honor, and forgotten worlds. I will be your narrator and guide through these epic lands. If you crave powerful stories, legendary dragons, and wars that echo through eternity, then you found your home, ladies and gentlemen. So subscribe, and claim your place among these legends.
The rain hammered against the dome so hard that Owen thought the glass might crack. He pressed his forehead against the cold window and stared at the alien jungle below. 3 months on verdant rise, and he still wasn't used to the purple trees or the way the lightning turned everything green for a split second. His tablet buzzed with another failure report. Egg batch 17, no movement. Egg batch 18, embryos degraded. Egg batch 19, complete cellular collapse. Owen threw the tablet on his bed and sat down hard. They'd brought him across the galaxy to save a dying species, and he was failing. The draconids were desperate. Their eggs wouldn't hatch anymore. Something in their genetics had broken, and nobody knew how to fix it. He was supposed to be the expert, the human scientist who'd solved impossible problems before. But this time, nothing worked. Someone knocked on his door. Owen didn't want to answer. He knew it would be Raveth, the old draconid historian who watched him with sad eyes that understood failure too well. "Dr. Blake, you should rest." Raveth's voice rumbled through the door like distant thunder. The draconids always sounded like that, deep and ancient. "Tomorrow we try again." "There won't be a tomorrow if I can't figure this out," Owen said. He opened the door anyway. Raveth stood there, scales the color of old stone, wings folded tight against his back. The draconid was twice Owen's height, but he moved carefully like he was afraid of breaking something. "Walk with me," Raveth said. It wasn't really a question. They moved through the facility's curved hallways. Other draconids passed them, some nodding at Raveth, others staring at Owen with expressions he couldn't read. Fear, maybe, or blame. The incubation chamber was at the heart of the building. Rows of eggs sat in temperature-controlled nests, each one monitored by a dozen sensors. The eggs were beautiful, covered in scales that shifted colors in the light. But they were dying. Owen could see it in the readings, the way the life signs dropped a little more each day. "My people had a saying," Raveth said quietly. "The stars remember what we forget." Owen looked at him. "What does that mean?" "I don't know anymore." Raveth touched one of the eggs gently. "Our ancestors wrote many things. Most of the old texts are lost now. But I remember reading about times when hatching was easy, when every egg brought joy. Something changed. We thought we were evolving beyond old ways, becoming stronger alone. Perhaps we were wrong." Owen stared at the eggs. An idea scratched at the back of his mind, something he'd dismissed before as too simple. "Raveth, what if the problem isn't in the eggs themselves? What if it's the environment? We have tried every temperature variation, every humidity level. Not that, chemical environment, trace elements." Owen pulled up his tablet, fingers moving fast. "Earth eggs need specific minerals, not much, just traces in the soil or water. What if draconid eggs evolved needing something that's not here anymore? Something that used to be common but disappeared." Raveth's eyes widened. "The old facilities were built differently, different materials, and we've moved the breeding program 3 times in the last century, always to newer buildings." Owen was already running calculations. "I can synthesize a compound, add it to the incubation atmosphere. It's a guess, but—" "We are beyond the luxury of certainty, Dr. Blake. Do it." Owen worked through the night. The compound wasn't complicated, just a mix of minerals that Earth-based life needed. Iron, copper, trace amounts of selenium. He had no proof it would work, but his gut said to try. He introduced the compound into the chamber for egg batch 20 at dawn. Then he sat down to wait. Raveth brought him food. Other draconid scientists came to watch. Hours crawled past. Owen's eyes burned from staring at monitors. Then at midnight, something moved. The alarm chimed soft and sweet. Owen jerked awake from a doze he didn't remember starting. On the screen, one egg was rocking, actually rocking. "Raveth," Owen's voice cracked. He ran to the chamber window. The draconids gathered, pressing close to the glass. Nobody breathed. The egg was azure blue, brighter than the others. Cracks spread across its surface in a starburst pattern. A small claw pushed through, then another. The shell fell away in pieces. The hatchling that emerged was tiny, maybe the size of a cat. Its scales were the color of deep ocean water, shimmering with inner light. Wings lay folded against its sides, delicate as paper. It blinked twice, shaking off bits of shell. Owen waited for the cry. Raveth had told him that healthy draconid newborns announced themselves with a sound that could shake mountains. It was instinct, coded into their genes. The hatchling was silent. Instead, its head turned. Golden eyes found Owen through the glass. The dragon stared at him with an intensity that made Owen's breath catch. It didn't look away, didn't blink, just stared like it was seeing something beyond Owen's skin, straight into whatever made him human. "This is wrong," one of the draconid scientists whispered. "It should cry, why doesn't it cry?" "An ill omen," another said. "The silent one brings darkness." But Owen couldn't look away from those golden eyes. Something passed between them in that moment, something he didn't have words for. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. The hatchling took one shaky step toward the glass. Its gaze never left Owen's face. Raveth's voice was very quiet. "In all my years, I have never seen this. What does it mean, Dr. Blake?" Owen pressed his hand against the window. The hatchling pressed its small snout against the glass from the other side, matching him. "I don't know," Owen said, "but I think we're about to find out." 5 days had passed since the hatching, and the little dragon hadn't eaten anything. Owen stood outside the incubation chamber and watched the hatchling sit perfectly still in the center of its nest. Other draconids had tried to feed it. They'd brought fresh meat, live prey, even synthetic nutrients. The dragon ignored everything. It just sat there, those golden eyes tracking Owen whenever he came near. "It will die soon," Commander Vrask said from behind him. The military leader's voice was cold and flat. "We should end its suffering now." Owen turned. Vrask was massive even for a draconid, scales the color of old bronze with scars running across his snout. He didn't like Owen. That much was clear from day one. "Give it more time," Owen said. "Time?" Vrask's laugh was harsh. "You created an abomination, human. A dragon that will not eat, will not cry, will not behave as our kind should. This is what comes from alien interference. I saved that egg without the treatment. You broke something sacred." Vrask leaned down until his face was level with Owen's. "That creature stares at you like it knows you. Dragons should bond with their own kind, not with humans. You have poisoned it somehow." Raveth appeared in the hallway, moving fast for someone so old. "Commander, you forget yourself. Dr. Blake is our guest and our hope." "He is our doom," Vrask said, but he stepped back. Military rank meant something. But Raveth's position as historian carried a different kind of power. Vrask glared at Owen one more time and left. "Ignore him," Raveth said quietly. "Fear makes people cruel." "He might be right, though." Owen looked back at the hatchling. "Something is wrong. It should be eating, growing. Instead, it just waits." "Waits for what?" "I think it's waiting for me." Raveth was quiet for a long moment. The old texts spoke of bonds between draconids and another species. The weavers, they were called, small beings with strong minds. Every draconid hatched seeking a weaver partner. Together they were complete. Apart, he trailed off. Apart they died. The texts are unclear. The weavers disappeared thousands of years ago. We thought the stories were myths. Owen made a decision. "I want to go in there." "That is forbidden. Hatchlings are fragile and humans carry." "It's dying anyway," Owen interrupted. "What's the worst that could happen?" Raveth studied him with ancient eyes. Finally, he nodded. "I will allow it, but if the hatchling attacks." "It won't." Owen didn't know how he knew that, but he was certain. He went through decontamination, put on the sterile suit, and stepped into the chamber. The temperature hit him first, warm and humid. The hatchling's head turned immediately. Those golden eyes locked onto Owen's face. He walked slowly across the chamber and knelt beside the nest. Up close, the dragon was even more beautiful. Its scales caught the light like water, shifting from azure to deeper blue with each breath. "Hey there," Owen said softly. "You've got everyone worried." The hatchling tilted its head. Then it moved faster than Owen expected. Before he could react, the small dragon pressed its snout against his palm. The world exploded into sensation. Hunger so deep it hurt, loneliness like a knife in the chest. Searching, always searching for something missing. And then recognition, the feeling of puzzle pieces sliding into place. Warmth, safety, home. Owen gasped. The feelings weren't his, but he could feel them as clearly as his own heartbeat. They were coming from the dragon. The hatchling made a sound, not quite a purr, but close. It pushed harder against Owen's hand and more sensations flooded through. Images this time, a memory of the hatching but from the dragon's perspective. The moment its eyes opened and it saw Owen through the glass. The instant certainty that this human was important, necessary. "You bonded with me," Owen whispered. "Is that even possible?" The dragon didn't answer in words, but Owen felt the response anyway. A wordless yes, combined with confusion that he would even question it. Outside the chamber, Raveth pressed against the glass, eyes wide. Owen looked at the food nearby. "Are you hungry?" Another surge of emotion. Yes, desperately, but only if Owen was there, only if the bond stayed strong. Owen picked up a piece of meat and held it out. The hatchling took it gently from his fingers and swallowed. Then it looked at him expectantly. They stayed there for an hour. Owen fed the dragon piece by piece, and with each bite the bond between them grew stronger. He could feel the hatchling's satisfaction, its growing strength. And underneath that, something deeper. Ancient knowledge passing through the connection, draconid history, culture, things the dragon somehow knew from birth. "Incredible," Raveth breathed when Owen finally emerged. "The bond, I have only read of such things in the oldest texts, soul-bonded pairs." "What does that mean?" "It means," Raveth said slowly, "that you and that hatchling are connected now. Mind to mind, heart to heart. In our ancient past, every draconid had such a bond, but never with humans, never with another species." "Can it be broken?" Raveth's expression darkened. "The old texts say that breaking a true bond kills both partners. I pray those texts are wrong, Dr. Blake, because Commander Vrask is gathering support. Many of our people will see this as a violation of our ways. They will demand separation." Owen looked back through the glass. The hatchling was curled in its nest now, eyes closed, finally sleeping peacefully. "Then they'll have to go through me," Owen said. The dragon's dreams touched his mind, warm and content. For the first time since arriving on Verdant Rise, Owen felt like he'd done something right. He just hoped they'd both survive what came next. Cobalt had grown fast in 3 months. What started as a cat-sized hatchling now stood tall as a horse, with wings that could spread wide enough to block the sun. Owen had named the dragon after the color of its scales, and the name felt right in a way he couldn't explain. The bond between them had become something neither could live without. Owen felt Cobalt's presence in his mind constantly now, like background music he'd learned. To live with, the dragon's emotions colored his own thoughts. When Cobalt was happy, Owen found himself smiling for no reason. When the dragon was anxious, Owen's chest would tighten. Right now, Cobalt was excited. 6 more eggs had hatched that morning using Owen's protocol. The facility buzzed with hope for the first time in years. Owen watched from the observation deck as draconid handlers tried to interact with the new hatchlings. Unlike Cobalt, these dragons behaved normally. They cried at birth, loud and strong. They ate when fed. They responded to their own kind. But something was off. Owen could see it in the way the hatchlings moved, uncertain and hesitant. They were healthy but not thriving. "They lack purpose," Raveth said, joining Owen at the window. The old historian looked tired. Political fights were draining him. "Your Cobalt knew what it needed from the first moment. These little ones search for something they cannot find." "Maybe they need bonds too," Owen said. With who, we have tried placing them with senior draconids. They show no interest in bonding. Owen thought about that. Through his connection with Cobalt, he'd learned things about draconid history that even Raveth didn't know. The genetic memories dragons carried went back thousands of years, and those memories spoke of the Weavers, the small telepathic beings who'd partnered with draconids long ago. Every draconid had needed a weaver. The bond wasn't optional, it was biological necessity. What if draconids evolved to need bonded partners? Owen asked. What if, without the weavers, your species has been slowly dying? Raveth's eyes widened. That would mean you need us, humans or someone like us. The door burst open. Commander Vrask stormed in, flanked by 4 armed draconids. This ends now, he snarled. I have gathered enough support from the Council. The human will be separated from the abomination immediately. Cobalt's alarm rang through Owen's head like a bell. The dragon was in the training grounds below, but Owen felt it start to move, felt its protective instinct surge. Commander, this is not the way, Raveth said, stepping between Owen and the soldiers. Move aside, old one. This is military authority now. Vrask gestured, and 2 soldiers grabbed Owen's arms. Pain lanced through the bond. Cobalt roared somewhere in the distance, a sound that shook the building's foundations. Stop, Owen shouted. You don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly. You have corrupted our last hope with your alien presence. Vrask's voice was full of hate. When we separate you from that creature, it will learn to be a true draconid, and you will return to your homeworld. Cobalt crashed through the training ground doors, moving faster than something that large should be able to move. The dragon's eyes were wild, fixed on Owen, reading his distress through their bond. The soldiers raised weapons. Raveth shouted for them to stop. Everything happened at once. Owen felt Cobalt's decision a split second before the dragon acted. Instead of attacking, Cobalt planted itself between Owen and Vrask, wings spread wide in a defensive posture. Through the bond, Owen felt the dragon's absolute certainty. Nothing would harm its bonded partner. Stand down, creature, Vrask ordered. Cobalt didn't move. I said stand down. The dragon's response came not in words, but in a wave of emotion so powerful that everyone in the room staggered. Protection, loyalty, unbreakable connection. This human was Cobalt's, and nothing in the galaxy would change that. Alarms started blaring. In the incubation center, something was wrong. Raveth ran to the monitors. His face went pale. One of the new hatchlings, its failing, heart rate dropping. Owen didn't think. He pulled free from the soldiers and sprinted toward the incubation chambers. Cobalt followed, ignoring Vrask's shouts. The hatchling was small and green-scaled, lying on its side, breathing shallow. Owen had seen this before in other species. Failure to thrive. The body giving up when the mind couldn't find what it needed. Let me try something, Owen said. He knelt beside the hatchling and reached out. Cobalt moved closer, pressing against Owen's back. Through their bond, Owen felt the dragon's consciousness expand, reaching toward the dying hatchling. It was like Cobalt was building a bridge. Energy flowed through Owen, warm and bright. The hatchling's eyes opened. Its breathing steadied. And then Owen felt another presence, human, familiar. Ruth, one of the facility technicians, stood in the doorway. She'd been caring for this hatchling since it emerged from the egg. The green dragon's eyes found her, really saw her for the first time. The bond snapped into place so fast it made Owen dizzy. He felt it through Cobalt, a mirror of their own connection. The hatchling scrambled to its feet and ran to Ruth, who dropped to her knees in shock. What just happened? She whispered. You're bonded now, Owen said, just like Cobalt and me. The room had gone silent. Draconids stared in amazement. Vrask stood frozen, watching his worldview crumble. Raveth's voice was soft but carried to every corner. The Weavers did not go extinct. They left, and now they have returned wearing different forms. The cycle begins again. Cobalt's satisfaction hummed through Owen's mind. The dragon had known all along. This was how things were supposed to be. Vrask's soldiers lowered their weapons. They'd all felt it, that moment of connection, the rightness of it. "This changes nothing," Vrask said, but his voice lacked conviction. Raveth smiled. "Commander, this changes everything." The facility felt like a powder keg waiting to explode. 2 weeks had passed since Ruth bonded with the green dragon she'd named Sterling. In that time, 3 more hatchlings had bonded with human staff members. Each bond formed the same way, a moment of recognition followed by an unbreakable connection. But not everyone was celebrating. Owen walked through the hallways and felt the tension in every corner. Some draconids nodded at him with respect. Others turned away, whispering. Vrask's faction had grown larger, feeding on fear and tradition. "They're planning something," Cobalt's voice sounded in Owen's mind. The dragon had learned to send simple thoughts through their bond now, though most communication still came through emotion and imagery. "I know," Owen thought back. "Stay alert." He found Raveth in the archive, surrounded by ancient texts. The old historian looked exhausted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. "The assembly meets tomorrow," Raveth said without looking up. "They will vote on whether to continue the bonding program or shut it down entirely. And if they shut it down, then all bonded pairs will be separated. The hatchlings will be raised traditionally. You and the other humans will be sent home." Owen's chest tightened. Through the bond, he felt Cobalt's spike of fear. "That would kill them. The bonds are too strong now." "I know." Raveth finally met Owen's eyes. "That is why Vrask is pushing for it. He believes the death of a few hatchlings is acceptable if it preserves draconid purity." "That's insane." "That is fear." Raveth closed the ancient book in front of him. "I have been reading everything I can find about the Weavers. Do you know why they left?" Owen shook his head. "Pride." Some draconids began to believe they were superior to their bonded partners. They thought the Weavers were holding them back, making them weak. There was a movement to raise hatchlings without bonds to prove draconid strength. Raveth's voice grew bitter. "The Weavers were heartbroken. They gathered their people and left for distant space, and we have been dying ever since." "How long ago was this?" 3,000 years. Long enough for most draconids to forget the truth. Long enough for the genetic damage to become critical. An explosion rocked the building. Alarms screamed. Owen ran toward the incubation center, Cobalt's panic flooding through their bond. Smoke filled the hallways. Draconids rushed past, some carrying emergency equipment. Owen pushed through the chaos and stopped dead. The incubation center was burning. Flames licked at the walls. Through the observation glass, Owen could see the remaining eggs, still unhatched, surrounded by fire. "Vrask," Raveth growled behind him. "He's forcing the assembly's hand. No eggs, no bonds." Owen didn't hesitate. He grabbed a fire extinguisher and ran for the chamber door. Someone tried to stop him, but Cobalt was there, clearing the way with a sweep of powerful wings. The heat hit like a wall when Owen entered. Smoke made his eyes water. He could barely see. But through the bond, Cobalt guided him, sharing the dragon's superior vision. 5 eggs remained intact. Owen grabbed the first one, nearly dropping it because it was heavier than expected. He passed it to Raveth at the door and went back for another. Cobalt roared a warning. Part of the ceiling was collapsing. Owen dove sideways, hitting the ground hard. The egg he'd been carrying rolled away. Then Cobalt was there, massive body shielding Owen from falling debris. The dragon's distress leaked through their connection, fear not for itself but for Owen. "I'm okay," Owen said aloud, coughing. "Get that egg." Working together, they saved 4 eggs. The 5th was crushed when a support beam fell. Owen stared at it, rage building in his chest. A life lost before it even began. "Where is Vrask?" he demanded. Raveth's expression was grim. "Fled. He has supporters who will hide him." The Draconid Council gathered in the main hall. Emergency. Session called. Owen stood before them covered in soot, Cobalt at his side. The other bonded pairs were there too, Ruth and Sterling. David and the bronze dragon named Flint, Lisa and the pale silver mist, Tony and the dark green forest. Commander Vrask's actions were not sanctioned, the council head announced. She was ancient, scales faded to white, but her voice carried authority. He will be found and punished. Punishment won't bring back that hatchling, Owen said. His voice shook with anger. Your people are dying. We're offering you a solution, and half of you are too proud to take it. Murmurs ran through the assembled draconids, some angry, some approving. You speak boldly, human, one council member said. But what you offer is the extinction of our culture. Bonding with aliens, depending on another species for our very survival. It is humiliation. It's survival, Ruth spoke up. Through Sterling, Owen felt the echo of her determination. And it's not dependence, it's partnership. Partnership, the council member laughed. You are not our equals, you are short-lived, fragile, limited. Cobalt's anger surged through the bond, but Owen held up a hand. Through their connection, he felt the dragon's genetic memories stir. Knowledge from 3,000 years ago when draconids and weavers lived as one. Show them, Owen thought to Cobalt. The dragon's consciousness expanded, touching every bonded pair in the room. And through those bonds, touching their human partners. Together they formed a network, minds linked in ways draconids alone could never achieve. Information flowed. Human creativity met draconid strength. Human adaptability met draconid wisdom. The bonds amplified both species, making something greater than either could be alone. The assembled council felt it. Their eyes widened. This is what we lost, Raveth said quietly. This is what our ancestors threw away in pride. We were never meant to be alone. The council head was silent for a long moment. Tomorrow we vote, but know this, if we choose the old ways, we choose extinction. The genetic damage is too severe. Our eggs fail without the bonding process. That night, Owen couldn't sleep. He sat with Cobalt in the training grounds, watching stars he didn't recognize wheel overhead. What if they vote no? He thought to the dragon. Cobalt's response was immediate and absolute. Then we leave together, find others. Who understand? Owen smiled despite his fear. Whatever happened, they'd face it together. That was what the bond meant. The assembly chamber was packed with every draconid of rank on verdant rise. Owen stood in the center with Cobalt, feeling hundreds of eyes on them. The other bonded pairs flanked them, a small group against an ocean of uncertainty. The council head raised her wings for silence. We have called this gathering to decide the future of our species. The question before us, do we accept bonding with humans as our path forward, or do we reject this practice and return to traditional ways? Vrask had been captured that morning, found hiding in the old mining tunnels. He sat in chains now, glaring at Owen with pure hatred. His supporters filled half the chamber, scales dulled by anger and fear. Let me speak first, Raveth said, stepping forward. He carried a data pad filled with research. I have spent weeks in our deepest archives, translating texts that haven't been read in millennia. I have confirmation of what we suspected. The Weavers were our bonded partners for over 10,000 years. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The bonds were not slavery or weakness. They were symbiosis. Draconid strength and Weaver telepathy combined into something extraordinary. Our golden age, the era of great expansion and discovery, happened during this partnership. Raveth's voice grew heavy. And our decline began the moment we severed those bonds. Lies, someone shouted from Vrask's section. The texts are corrupted. You're twisting history to justify this abomination. I have brought proof. Raveth activated a hologram. Ancient draconid script filled the air along with images. Weavers looked nothing like humans, small and ethereal with 6 limbs and crystalline features. But the bonds they formed with draconids were identical to what Owen shared with Cobalt. The images showed bonded pairs working together. A draconid's physical power guided by a weaver's telepathic precision. Warriors who moved as one. Scientists who shared knowledge instantly. Artists who created beauty beyond either species' individual capability. This was our heritage, Raveth said, and in our pride we destroyed it. A faction arose claiming draconids needed no partners, that we were diminished by connection. The weavers pleaded with us to reconsider. When we refused, they left. They took their ships and vanished. Into deep space. Then we are better without them, Vrask shouted, chains rattling. We survived, we endured. We didn't survive, we're dying. Owen stepped forward. Cobalt moved with him, their bond steady and strong. Your genetic code is collapsing, each generation weaker than the last. Raveth showed me the population data. 3,000 years ago, you numbered in the billions. Now, less than 1 million draconids exist in the entire galaxy. The silence was absolute. The bonds aren't making you weak, Owen continued. The absence of bonds is killing you. Your species evolved to need partners. Without them, you're incomplete. That's why the eggs stopped hatching. That's why your birth rate dropped. Your own biology is crying out for what it lost. A council member stood. Even if this is true, why should we trust humans? You are nothing like the weavers. No, we're not, Ruth said, stepping forward with Sterling at her side. We're different, but the bonds work the same way. We've proven that. David spoke next. Through Flint, I can feel the genetic memories, the knowledge your species carries, and Flint can feel my human perspective, my problem-solving abilities. Together, we're stronger than either of us alone. Lisa added, Mist shows me the galaxy through draconid eyes. I show her Earth's resilience. We teach each other. Tony finished. Forrest and I are writing new protocols together, combining human and draconid science. We've made more progress in 2 weeks than either species made in years. The council head looked at each bonded pair. And what of the hatchlings who were not bonded, the ones raised traditionally? Raveth pulled up more data. All 5 are failing. They eat, they grow, but they lack drive, purpose. Their handlers report lethargy and disinterest. Without bonds, hatchlings exist but do not truly live. This is correlation, not causation, a skeptical council member argued. Then test it, Owen said. We have 4 eggs left. Try to hatch them without any human presence. See what happens. Raveth shook his head. We already know the answer. Before Dr. Blake arrived, we lost 23 clutches. Every egg failed. His protocol only works because it prepares hatchlings for bonding. Without partners waiting, the eggs sense it somehow. They don't hatch. Genetic memory, Owen explained. The eggs know instinctively that they need bonded partners when none are. Present, they abort development. It's a survival mechanism, preventing hatchlings from being born into circumstances where they can't thrive. Vrask lunged against his chains. Then we are slaves to biology, forced to shackle ourselves to aliens. You're forced to accept reality, Raveth said quietly. And reality is that we threw away our future 3,000 years ago. The humans are offering us a second chance. The council head looked ancient and tired. I was there when the last independent hatching occurred, 50 years ago, my own grandchild. It lived for 3 days, never bonding, never thriving. I held it as it died. Her voice broke. I do not wish that fate on any other hatchling. She turned to the assembled draconids. We vote now. All in favor of accepting human bonding as our path forward speak. The chamber erupted in voices. Some shouted approval, others roared rejection. The count took an hour, every draconid recorded individually. Finally, the council head announced the result. The motion passes. By a margin of 62%, we accept the bonding program. Vrask screamed his rage. His supporters stood and left, over a third of the assembly, but the majority remained. The council head approached Owen. We entrust our future to this partnership. Do not make us regret this choice. Through the bond, Owen felt Cobalt's soaring joy mixed with determination. We won't, he promised. But even as the words left his mouth, he wondered what they'd truly won. A chance to save a species, or just postpone the inevitable. Only time would tell. 6 months had changed everything. Owen stood on the cliff overlooking the valley where the new facility was being built. Cobalt stretched beside him, fully grown now, wings that could carry them both into the clouds. Through their bond, Owen felt the dragon's contentment mixed with pride. Below, construction drones worked alongside draconids and humans. The new complex would be 3 times larger than the old one, designed specifically for bonded pairs. Hatching chambers connected to human living quarters. Training grounds built for 2 species working as one. Archives where draconid history and human knowledge could merge. Owen, Ruth's voice called from the landing pad. Sterling descended from the sky, Ruth secure on the dragon's back. They'd mastered flight together, human and draconid moving as one mind. More dragons followed, David and Flint, who'd pioneered new alloys by combining draconid metallurgy with human chemistry. Lisa and Mist, working on educational programs for hatchlings and their human partners. Tony and Forrest, developing environmental restoration techniques. The program had exploded beyond anyone's expectations. 200 more humans had arrived from Earth, volunteers eager to bond with hatchlings. Not every pairing worked. The bond required compatibility, genuine connection. But when it clicked, the results were extraordinary. Raveth approached, moving slower these days. His age showed more clearly now, but his eyes were bright with hope. The last 4 eggs hatched this morning, all successful, all bonding within hours. Any sign of Rask's faction? They've retreated to the outer colonies, bitter but no longer violent. Some will come around eventually. Raveth paused. We received a message today from deep space. Owen's heart jumped. The Weavers. No, but a species that knows of them. The Weavers established colonies far from draconid space. They thrived, evolved, spread to a dozen worlds. The message was an apology. The Weavers' descendants regret their ancestors' departure. They thought draconids would eventually learn. They didn't expect us to nearly destroy ourselves. Will they come back? Perhaps in time, but they're glad we found new partners, Raveth smiled. They said humans have something Weavers lacked, a stubborn refusal to accept defeat. They think that's exactly what draconids need. Cobalt's amusement rippled through Owen's mind. The dragon had never doubted humans for a moment. A celebration was planned for that evening. 6 months of successful bondings, 0 failed hatchlings, and a birth rate climbing for the first time in centuries. The draconid population was still tiny, but it was growing. Owen walked through the party and saw the future taking shape. A human child played with a young dragon, both laughing. Scientists from both species collaborated on projects that would have been impossible alone. Warriors trained together, draconid strength enhanced by human tactical thinking. It's strange, Ruth said, joining him with Sterling's massive head resting on her shoulder. 6 months ago, I was just a technician. Now I'm part of something that feels ancient and new at the same time. The bonds do that, Owen agreed. They reach back thousands of years while pushing us towards something unprecedented. Sterling rumbled agreement, the sound vibrating through Ruth's whole body. Through Cobalt, Owen felt the echo of Sterling's contentment. All the bonded dragons were connected somehow, a network of consciousness that humans could sense but not fully understand. The council head approached, moving carefully through the crowd. She'd aged visibly in 6 months but seemed more at peace. Dr. Blake, I wanted to thank you. When you arrived, I had resigned myself to watching my species die. Now I see hatchlings every day. I hear their cries echoing through the facility. It wasn't just me, Owen said. It was Cobalt. The bond gave me the knowledge I needed. That's what makes it work, she said. Neither species could do this alone. Together, you're capable of miracles. As darkness fell, Owen and Cobalt climbed to their favorite spot, the highest point on the cliff. The stars came out, brilliant in verdant rises, clear sky. Do you ever regret it? Owen asked through their bond. Being tied to a human instead of another dragon. Cobalt's response came instantly, layered with complexity only their connection could convey. No regret. The bond was right, destiny, home. Dragons were meant to share their strength, and humans needed that strength as much as draconids needed human perspective. What do you think will happen now? Owen wondered aloud. Images flowed through the bond. Cobalt's vision of the future showed cities where humans and draconids lived as equals. Ships crewed by bonded pairs, exploring the galaxy together. Children of both species raised side by side, learning each other's strengths. But also challenges. Not every draconid would accept the change. Not every human could bond. There would be conflicts, misunderstandings, growing pains. Worth it though, Owen thought. Absolute certainty radiated from Cobalt, worth everything. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the first transport ship descend. More human volunteers coming to participate in the program. Each one represented hope, a chance for a dying species to reclaim its future. Owen thought about that moment 6 months ago when a tiny dragon stared at him through incubation chamber glass. Neither of them had known what was happening. They just knew it was right. That instinct had saved a species, and in saving the draconids, humans had gained something precious too, partners who would stand. With them against any threat, friends who shared their minds and hearts, a connection that transcended language and biology. This is only the beginning, Owen said. Cobalt's agreement thrummed through their bond, and with it came joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy at being alive, being bonded, being part of something bigger than either of them. Owen leaned against the dragon's warm scales and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the Weaver's descendants were watching too. Maybe someday all three species would meet, share their stories, learn from each other. But for now, this was enough. A human and a dragon, two species becoming one, writing a new chapter in galactic history. The baby dragon hadn't cried at birth because it had found what it was searching for. And so had Owen,